This video is going to be the complete beginner's guide to what a futures contract is. First, for those who don't know what the S&P 500 is and the NASDAQ is, basically they take the entire stock market and compile it into a tracker called the S&P 500. This is the 500 biggest stocks in the stock market, and then the NASDAQ 100 is 100 of the biggest stocks in the tech sector. And basically, these two track how the market is doing as a whole. So basically, it is a basket of a whole bunch of different stocks that make up the stock market. And it's being tracked under one name, the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100. But you're not actually able to buy the index as a whole. The index is just tracking the 500 stocks and the 100 stocks. It's not something you can actually buy. However, there are things that you can buy that allow you to buy the market as a whole. First, there's ETFs, which is basically a piece of an entire fund that holds all of the different stocks in the S&P 500 or all the different stocks in the NASDAQ, and you're buying a piece of that fund. But that's not the only way to invest in the market as a whole. You can buy a futures contract. A futures contract is exactly what it sounds like. It's literally just buying a contract. You're not buying the actual stocks. When you buy it, you're essentially agreeing to a contract, which is whatever the indice's value is at expiration, the difference between that and my entry price, that is going to be either my profit or my loss. Or the difference between when I buy it and when I sell it. Whatever the difference is, that is going to be my profit or loss. But the key is, with a futures contract, you're not actually buying these stocks in the stock market. You're essentially just making a bet or an agreement with another person that whatever the value of the indice is, when that contract expires, that's how much your contract is going to be worth. So once again, you're not buying the actual stocks in the stock market when you buy a futures contract. You're just buying a contract which says that it's going to be worth whatever the indice's value is worth at expiration. Futures contracts are different than CFDs. When you buy a futures contract, you're buying it on a regulated market. CFDs are unregulated. Also, there are way more futures contracts out there than there are CFDs, meaning there's way more liquidity. Finally, the reason futures contracts never stray too far off from the actual indice's value is because traders use arbitrage.